Mr. Harlan, thank you very much and very welcome to the Film School of Universidade Lusófona. We are very glad and very proud to have this interview with you.
It's a pleasure.
The first thing that I would like to ask you is, since you have a sister that is a painter, your son is a musician, your uncle was Harlan was a huge film director back in the 30s. Is the gene of art in your family?
I suppose the gene of music is in my family. My parents were opera singers and my grandparents were musicians. But I had a different job before I started in '69 with Stanley Kubrick. And that was business planning and business organizing. So that suited, however, Stanley Kubrick very well, and that's why he asked me to join him for 1 year to go to Romania, of all places, to do some exterior shooting of Napoleon. And so I came to England with my wife and our little son. We prepared this, and then MGM pulled the film. And Napoleon never happened.
I know.
However, I got along with Stanley very well. He liked me. We loved England. And so he asked me, oh, well, why don't you stay and we do something else? And so one thing led to the other. And my previous profession was very quickly adapted to the organization within filmmaking. And that's how it all happened. And then I learned, the new things I needed to learn. And from Barry Lyndon onwards, so 2-3 years later, I was his executive producer to the very end. And then the same with Steven Spielberg on AI, artificial intelligence. And since then, I made a number of documentaries. One was shown here last night. And I did a few others. And I'm teaching a lot at film schools.
In England?
England, Scandinavia, Germany, many, many different.
Okay.
English has become the umbrella language of a part of the world, so that's not a problem.
Because since you were born in '37, you were born just before the Second World War, what made you emigrate to England?
Oh, I emigrated long before to America.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was a green card holder already as a young man. I lived in New York for 2 years. It was just wonderful. I loved it.
So you just spent the Second World War in America?
No.
No, of course, you were a child. I thought that you got with your parents.
No. I was put in a little village, and I mean, as a child, you're adaptable. So Second World War didn't bother me. I got used to the fact that it was cold and there was little food and there was no chocolate, but that's not a problem. As a child, you're very adaptable. And when I was 7, I was singing already the Marseillaise because I was in the French-occupied part of Germany, and it suited me well. And I love the French to this day.
So you were in the West?
Southwest.
Southwest. Yeah. Because you were born in Karlsruhe.
I was born in Karlsruhe, which is also southwest.
Yes, of course.
I grew up even further south, and the French territory was called the Rhin-Danube, and that's where I grew up, and it was no problem at all. So I was very lucky to be born at a time of peace. Yeah.
Very good. Since we are a film school, we would like to know exactly what does an executive producer?
The term is totally misleading. It means nothing, because it depends with whom you are working. For example, on a film called Clockwork Orange, we have 2 executive producers we never met. We never even talked to them. I mean, we just know them by name. But so you have to really look very carefully what that means. In my case, I was an executive member of the crew.
I understand.
Yeah, I was a crew member. My job was to identify with the interest of the filmmaker. This was not a committee job. This was one filmmaker, and everybody else tried to help him as best as he could to realize his dreams and his vision. My job was to get it done at time and at a good price. Yeah?
Yes.
You organize things, you hire people, you make deals for equipment, for locations, you get permissions from the police, from the mayor, you are allowed to put, I don't know what, in the midnight you put some strange vehicle somewhere, whatever.
Because as you know, most of us in Europe, we have a romantic think about being an executive producer, and we know that in America most of the executive producers, what they do is to sign contracts.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
I mean, in my case, for example, with Steven Spielberg, I was mainly involved in the pre-production because I was working with Stanley Kubrick for 1 year already on AI, artificial intelligence. This is how this all happened.
I'm very glad that you are explaining that, because I was going to ask you what was the difference to be executive producer in Barry Lyndon or executive producer in Shining and be executive producer with Steven Spielberg.
A great difference, a great difference. In case of Kubrick, it meant 14 hours a day, total commitment, and really making sure that this multitasking that he had developed be fulfilled properly. You know, I give you a perfect example. We were always very few people, and everybody had to do whatever was necessary. So on Eyes Wide Shut, when Stanley changed his mind about the masks for the so-called orgy, which was his vision of hell, right? Hieronymus Bosch type hell. So then he said, oh, well, we must have a different kind of mask. It's impossible. These people recognize each other, these voyeurs. So I went to Venice and I bought all the masks. So is that the job of an executive producer? No. But, you know, in
so
our
you went to be an art director?
No,
or
not really.
a kind of
said,
a production designer, buying masks for the actors.
Look, he said, look, you got good taste. I want full masks. You have to go to Venice. And I said, you can make your telephone calls from wherever you are, right? So that was the attitude. And I loved it. I loved it. But you know, artistically, I had very little to do with his films other than suggesting music. But I suggested music. I didn't choose.
I understand. I saw a little bit of your documentary about Stanley Kubrick. I saw a few parts, not all it, but a few parts. And I would like to ask you, how do you deal being his brother-in-law and executive producer?
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
No, that didn't come into it at all. The fact that I knew him for 10 years while I was in New York and I had my job and I saw him all the time made us acquainted. So he knew me. And that caused the invitation when I was back in Zurich to join him for 1 year on Napoleon. So from that point of view, it was important that I knew him. He was my brother-in-law. But then when we started working, it became totally irrelevant.
His personality was very, very special, right? As I could see from your film, from your documentary, the personality of Stanley Kubrick was very, very special.
Yes, he was full of energy and of ideas. He was incredibly intelligent and an original man and very, very witty. He was extremely funny. And I enjoyed working with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it for 30 years. Well, you know.
Do you recognize that qualities in Steven Spielberg?
Oh, a different quality, absolutely. Steven Spielberg is a delightful man. I mean, one of the nicest people you can meet. Incredibly. He has the same quality as Stanley in being very quiet, very soft-spoken, and very clear. And I like that. He makes very different films, totally different films. But Stanley recognized that so well. That's why Stanley offered him AI, and probably with a little bit of a heartache, because Stanley loved his project AI. He had worked on it for a long time, but then he came to the conclusion that Steven Spielberg would be the better director for this.
I'm going to make you a last question because I know that you are a little bit in a hurry.
I'm supposed to start in 3 minutes.
I just would like to ask you two little questions.
Okay, go ahead.
One is about a secret that you are going to tell the Portuguese for the first time. Okay? The first one I'm going to ask you is, what motivates you to teach film?
I'm now 75 years old. I love to be in touch with young people. I have 3 sons. I have 7 grandchildren. I am very curious what young people do. I'm also on juries very often for first-time filmmakers and for short films. I find this all very, very important. It is my look into politics on a practical level, namely what motivates young people between 20 and 25, because they're going to have a hard time ahead. There's no doubt about it. And another thing I like to pass on to young people is how difficult it is to make a good film. It's very easy to make a film. It's easier than ever before to make a good film. That's something else. And a great film, like any great work of art, is almost a miracle.
Okay. Just the last question. Back in the 80s, I was assistant director of several film directors, and I was assistant directors of most of film productions, American film productions that was shot in Portugal. And once they told me, Stanley Kubrick is in town and is doing some survey for a film about Magalhães. Is that true?
About?
Magalhães, the Portuguese navigator that went around the world.
Not at all true. I'll tell you what is true, is our research in Portugal to find a place to shoot Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
And we realized, Spain and Portugal were potentials, because he did not consider for a moment to go to the Philippines. And then he really also found a perfect solution in using East London and the gasworks to dress up Hanoi or whatever it is, in Hue, the city of Hue. And he was glad he didn't have to leave his house.
So actually, he has been in Portugal.
He
has never been here.
No,
okay.
He has never been here. He sent
someone
to take photographs. Yeah.
It's a pity, because I would like to ask you, in the end, what was he thinking about the Portuguese? We will never know.
We will never know. No, but now I tell you a secret.
Okay.
I have a Portuguese grandfather.
Yeah.
Yes, he was called Carlos Augusto de Freitas.
Yes.
Yes.
You know that the grandmother of Peter Sellers was Portuguese too.
Well, there we go.
So Portuguese are everywhere. And in the genes of all artists.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay,
Harlan.
welcome.
Thank
okay,
you.
bye-bye.